We all have questions, and Pastor Carney has answers. We all want to know what he thinks. There's important information to know. What are his thoughts? How did he get here? What's his favorite golf ball? It's time for 3 Questions with Pastor Carney.
I think a good example of this is when Jesus met Peter at the beach, and Peter was not having a good time fishing, and Jesus said, "Throw your nets to the other side," and Peter said, "What? That's a horrible idea." And then he did it. He caught a lot of fish, and then he followed him. So
that's a great example. I kind of go off of what Pastor talked about this Sunday as a parent, following the leader, as a father, being the leader of my home, being the leader of my wife, but doing it in a respectful way. So I always kind of go back to that of making sure I know my role, which is leading my wife, leading my family, but in a godly way.
The way I would answer that question, and this might surprise you, is I'm not going to go all biblical and theological on you. What I'm going to go with is more of a childlike answer, not childish. I firmly believe in being childlike as opposed to childish in our thinking and acting. And what I mean by that is go back to your childhood. You're playing the game Follow the Leader. And what you do is you follow the leader exactly. If their right hand goes up, your right hand goes up. If their left hand goes up, your left hand goes up. If they jump, if they skip, if they slow down, if they speed up, if they turn around, whatever they do, even if they sing a song as they're doing it, you follow exactly. So what that means for me is that as we play that childhood game, we follow exactly the leader. The same thing is true in our life with Jesus. What he has done, we follow exactly what Jesus laid out for us in his word. The only difference is he didn't sin along the way, we do. But see, we follow the leader exactly, and so we strive not to sin, although we do sin often, every day, probably more times than we can think every day. So, what it means to me is we follow exactly Jesus in everything he says, does, and think, especially trying not to sin, although we do.
So the 2 people that I think of are my grandma and grandpa, my mom's parents. Although sinful by nature, just really good examples of Christian human beings and really, really good people, genuinely, from how to treat people, how to help people, being selfless, giving to others, being smart with your money. There is a slew of things that I could go through from the time I was a child. I have always looked up to them, how they've carried themselves. And again, really just an acceptance and a love for people, no matter what that person's going through. They seem to always be loving. So that's who I would turn to, would be my grandparents. So
I'm going to follow that and also say my grandparents. But in this case, my grandfather, as you know, was a pastor for most of his life.
Yeah. And
then my grandmother was very much so a pastor's wife, and she played piano and she baked, and we tried to make smoothies without the lid on the blender. And, she always just had a good presence about her. She always talked to everyone. And together they helped run their church very well.
Yeah. That's awesome. He is a really good example of
Christ.
Christ.
He is a great example.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, Billy. And I enjoyed Phil and Rachel's answers. And I'm going to choose 3 people. Probably 2 you guys don't know of, but probably have heard me speak about them, and 1 you do know, and for a different reason. But who would I want to model my life, I guess was the question, Billy, model my life as an example from them? 1, I'd have to go with my ministry with worship and spirituality, especially worship. If you know, and I'm sure you guys know, that my worship style is a little bit different than your, I was going to say, ordinary, normal, average pastor. Not your typical pastor, especially when it comes to worship. I really bonded with a pastor by the name of Pastor Otto Struckman. And he was my worship guru, my worship mentor back in New York, Lockport, New York. This man of God can put together some awesome spirit-filled worship services. They were deep, they were spiritual, they were relational, which it's a huge part with me, being relational. And I learned a lot sitting at the feet of Pastor Otto Struckman. He was serving the church down the street from me, probably about 3-4 miles over. And I gained much from Otto Struckman in the area of worship, especially relational worship. That's one. The second one you may have heard me talk of. It's a man, wonderful Christian man. His name is Ray Smith. Ray Smith was one of my elders back at Hope in Levittown, Pennsylvania. Brilliant man, good, kind-hearted, compassionate Christian man. He played an awesome bass guitar in the praise band, but he was also in a leadership position in his day-to-day job. He would go around the country 300 days a year, meeting with CEOs and executives. And what he taught me was how to be a leader, and to be a leader from the heart, not to be a leader from the head. And the first part of my ministry was really not where it should have been. And then Ray mentored me. And ever since then, I've always asked myself in tough situations when it came to leadership, what would Ray do? Or what would Ray have me do? Now, he is so humble, he takes no credit for that. But I give him all the credit in the world because he is my leadership guru. And a lot of my leadership style now, after I met Ray, is thanks in part to a wonderful, awesome man by the name of Mr. Ray Smith. And I'm going to pass this along to him and his wife, Judy, and hopefully he'll pick up on it. So if you are watching, Ray, God bless you. You know I love you, and you meant a lot to me in my ministry, especially in my leadership style. And these people here at Redeemer in Warsaw are reaping the benefits of what you put into my heart and my head way back in Levittown. So God bless you, buddy. The third one is one person that you have met before and you know is the apple of my eye, and that's my grandson, Owen. And the reason I chose Owen is because he's lived his short life, 3 years now, in an amazing fashion. His life started out very difficult. As you know, he was born premature. He was born with a terminal disease, a rare disease, I should say, a rare disease. And he was given a blood stem cell transplant at 1 month old. And then he coded 5 times. Every single organ in his body shut down and went into failure. And here he is today. And he's one of the few kids that has Krabbe leukodystrophy and is walking. And so every time I see him, every time I hold him, he's a miracle. And part of me thinks, I wonder if he knows what he went through. And part of me asks, I wonder how he handles life. And the way he handles life is he smiles, he keeps going, he has fun, he laughs a lot. And I take that to my life when things get down, when things get hassled. I remember Owen and think, how would Owen handle this? And the way he would handle it would be with a smile and would be with a laugh and just enjoying life. And so that would be my third person that I would like to, I try to take my life and wrap it around. So first one, again, was Reverend Otto Struckman. The second one was Ray Smith. And the third one was my little buddy, Owen.
I'd say some of the most memorable was trying to do the Christmas play that we'd always put on, and Barb and Liz would be trying to corral all of us kids, and the shepherds would be trying to hit the others with their hooks, and
Sounds about
there'd
right.
always be an angel crying somewhere, and it somehow usually ended up to go pretty well for the actual thing. So that's probably some of the most memorable moments.
So this is kind of strange, but I went to Redeemer Lutheran School when it was here, which was the same classrooms as the Sunday school. So a lot of it blurs for me. But This is actually really funny. The smell of the bindery, the factory next to us, I always had that smell in my mind when I thought about church, and that always popped in. So that was just one of those things, and smells are really powerful.
Right, yes, they are.
But more specifically towards Sunday school, just the Sunday school teachers, the love that I always remember receiving, and guidance, and it seemed to always be a lady, and there were some really good ones. So going back to like Mrs. Conley and stuff like that, it was pretty good. So.
Wow, great answers, Phil and Rachel. And Rachel, the reason I'm chuckling, Rachel, is because of you. Because when you're telling that story about the angel crying and the shepherds hitting everybody with their crooks, I had this image pop into my head of, I think her name was Emma Jean. And if you don't know who Emma Jean is, she is the lead character who plays Mary in the awesome movie, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. I think that's the title of it, where I think it's the Herdman kids come in and take over the pageant, and little Emma Jean is Mary, and it's funny. So I was picturing Emma Jean when you were saying that. But for me, how do I answer that question? Well, I got to go back to when I was probably, I had to be 8, 9, 10 years old, someplace in there. And I had a wonderful lady. Her name was Margie Koch. That was her name, Margie Koch. Her name really was Margaret, but everyone called her Margie Koch. And she was our Sunday school teacher for the whole time. She taught everybody one class every year. So I had her for like 10 years. But I remember every summer she would say, "What song do you want to sing?" And I always used to raise my hand and say, "Away in the Manger." And it was interesting because it was June, July, and August on Long Island, 95, 98 degrees hot and 110 degrees humidity or whatever. And I always wanted to sing Away in the Manger. And I remember her saying one time, she said, "Little Billy," and I hate that phrase. Even though I love Billy to death, I didn't like being called Billy as this Billy does. But she said, "Little Billy, one day you're going to be a pastor." And I thought, you're right. And look, I'm a pastor. So Margie Koch, I know she's in heaven now, but what you saw in me from my simple, "I want to sing Away in the Manger" in June, July, and August to today, God knew that you were the right person for me in Sunday school, and you led me through Sunday school to become what I am today, a pastor who loves to sing Away in a Manger. And, by the way, not your typical Away in a Manger. Away in a manger. Not that one. Away in a manger. That version. So that's my answer, Billy. And as I say, that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. So this has been awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Billy. You guys, as always, are awesome.
Thanks for joining us for 3 Questions with Pastor Carney. We'll look forward to doing it again next week.
Thanks again for joining us. If you have any questions about Redeemer, have a topic or interview suggestion, or need to know anything about the church, you can contact the church office at churchoffice@redeemerwarsaw.org, Pastor Carney at pastor_Carney@redeemerwarsaw.org, Phil at phil.prevail@gmail.com, or Billy at rlc_it@redeemerwarsaw.org. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and please join us again next week. And until then, may the Lord be with your spirit, and grace be with you.